Cole Porter wrote in the song from Can Can, ooh la la la, say magnifica, you did it, you became the it girl. By the way, the expression, the it girl, reached global attention way back in 1927 with the popularity of the Paramount Studios silent film called It, starring Clara Bow. The it girl was Clara Bow's nickname, and it's a term for a woman possessing undefinable appeal, a je ne sais quoi. Coming up next, we're going to take a short intermission, but after that we'll have a story with undefinable appeal by the it man himself, Bob Rubin, about his dreams of rock and roll stardom. So hang out for a bit, tell some of your own survival stories to your table mates, order a drink, and wait for a few minutes to come up, and we'll be back, and you'll survive. Welcome back. I hope you're enjoying your evening so far. We are so pleased to present our next storyteller. Bob Rubin is here for the first time for Short Story Theater. And he'll be telling us about the angst he experienced during his teenage years when he had these dreams of rock and roll stardom. Dave Grohl of Nirvana and the Foo Fighters, maybe some of you have heard of them, I don't know, gave this advice to teenage musicians everywhere. Don't look at the poster on your wall and think, I could never do that. Look at the poster on your wall and think, I'm gonna do that. Well, that's what the teenage Bob Rubin thought. John Lennon wrote, "You say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one." Well, that's true. Bob Rubin was also a dreamer. So please welcome Bob and his story, Almost a Rock Star.
Like Elvis Presley or Buddy Holly, and I'm going to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, I guarantee it. Stop that pounding, my mother would say. Stop that pounding. But Mom, I'm writing the next hit record. I'm just putting the chord pattern together. It's going to be called Marlene. That was 1956. I was 15 years old. I wanted to so badly to be the next Buddy Holly, Jerry Lee Lewis, or Elvis Presley. I was actually starting to write my first songs, and I thought, it's time to put a group together. So I got Joel, and Billy, and Horace. Horace played the upright bass. He was black. I thought it was so cool to have a black guy in the group at that time. The only problem was none of us could really sing. Not a problem. We'd go to the studio, we'd crank up the reverb, and everything would be great. So we went there, we pulled our $100 together, went to the studio to do the first song, Marlene. After several takes, it wasn't right, but after an hour and a half, our money was gone. We took what we had, took the acetates that they were called at the time, and we decided, well, what are we going to do now? Well, I had a friend, his name was Bob Shane. He was well connected through his father. And I said, Bob, get your dad to do something. Who's going to listen to this? Who's going to be interested in this? So he got us an audience with Marty Fay. Now, I don't know if you know who Marty Fay was, but in the 50s and 60s, he was a radio talk show host. He was caustic. Everyone loved to hate Marty Fay. So we went to his office one day. He smirked, he looked at me, and he said, Bob says you have some talent. Yeah, a little bit, Mr. Fay. Well, we decided that he would put on this record, and we sat there on the edge of our seats, and this is what he heard. there was dead silence. He looked at us, he looked at me in the eye, and he said, "That sounds like 4 guys farting." Oh my God, we were devastated. We thanked him for his time. We walked out of there, and stardom was not to be that day. In September '59, I went to the University of Iowa. The first thing I did, I joined a fraternity. We started our own group, Bobby and the Pledges. We actually were pretty good. We played fraternity parties, events around the campus. We knocked them dead with songs like Run Around Sue and Poetry in Motion and others of the day. And then we decided we were going to go to Cedar Rapids, where there was a recording studio, and record about 8 or 10 of my new songs. So we did that. Came back, it was pretty darn good. It was winter break. I called my friend Bob Shane and said, "Bob, I think we're really ready now." So what did his dad do this time? He got us an audition with Chess Records. Oh my God, I was beside myself, being the same stable as, who's on Chess Records? Chuck Berry, Bo Diddley, Muddy Waters. Oh my God, what could be better than that? So the day of the audition came. We were on Michigan Avenue in the studio, all set up for our first song, and Howie Ruttman, our drummer, fell off his stool. Cymbals went flying everywhere, and it was downhill from there. No stardom that day. We're lucky they didn't throw us out of Chess Records. So in 1963, I graduated, went home, married my high school sweetheart, was going to go into my father's law firm, so I went to law school, going to live happily ever after. It didn't quite work out that way. The marriage fizzled, the law degree fizzled, and it was a perfect time to try rock and roll music again. No, I'm not going to quit. So in 1964, I started a new and better band, and I wrote what I thought was, and still do think, was one of my better songs. It was called "Please Keep the Beatles in England." It was the only Beatles protest record I think ever done. And one of the lines was this: "Before the Beatles started fooling around, I had the cutest little girl in town. She liked the way I combed my hair before, but she don't like it anymore." Here's what it sounded like.
Please keep the Beatles in England. Please keep the Beatles in England. More than any other song. England rules the wind.
Well, we brought it to Chess Records. They loved it. They loved it. They printed all kinds of promotional copies on the Argo label. That's where they put the token white guys. And they brought it around to all the stations. Their promo guys knocked on every door they could. Not a single DJ would play the record. The Beatles were so hot at the time, the record got shelved. And ironically enough, it got its first airplay 48 years later on WXRT. Terry Hemmert does Breakfast with the Beatles. She thought it was adorable, a small consolation for yours truly. Then it happened, I thought. In 1966, I put a record together called "I'll Show You How to Love." It went something like this. Well, I thought I hit the inside track because I was working for a record distributor at the time. Bill Cassidy, who was the promotional guy for Warner Brothers Records, said, "Bob, I will get this played I'll get a hit record for you, and here's the deal. You give me half of all the profits. Well, it didn't sound that reasonable, but I had nothing else going. So I said, okay, Bill, let's do it. And he was right about the first part. It actually got on the charts. It got to number 38 in Chicago. Went off slightly after that, but you know, we cracked the barrier. It was the first time that ever happened to me. So about a week later, I went to pick up the royalty check. And the controller said, well, Bob, Bill Cassidy picked it up yesterday and he's been transferred to another Warner Brothers location. Oh, my father was not happy with this. So we went after him in a court of law. We garnished his wages. I finally got my money. And with all of that, we broke even. This is a tough business. So in 1967, I actually got a real job. I became the buyer of musical instruments for Montgomery Ward. But I still had that urge to play. So we would go to clubs, play till 1 or 2 in the morning. I would get up at 6 in the morning, go to work, and my routine was about noon, I would go into the bathroom, go into the stall, and take a 1-hour nap. Well, that gig had to end. I was blowing the job. So I quit playing in the band, and then things really happened. Our sales went up by 4 times, and I was the fair-haired boy. In those Beatle days, you could put 6 strings on a broom and it would sell, but I never told management that. With my success at Ward's, I was hired away by Chicago Musical Instruments. They were the largest in the country. I was made director of marketing of the Maestro division, which is a little stepchild department in the company. The idea there was to develop little sound products that would enhance music on stage. I was a little miffed. I thought, gee, with my success at Ward's, I should be put ahead of the Gibson guitar division. But I doubled my salary, so I didn't complain. So the purpose of this job was to develop effect products that allowed guitarists, keyboardists, other musicians to get studio sounds on stage. So while I was not really a great musician, my creative mind really got into this job. With an engineering staff at my disposal, I had one idea after the other and started creating, promoting, and selling products like fuzz tones and wah-wah pedals and phase shifters and echoplexes, which may sound like a foreign language to you. But when you hear the songs in which they were used, you will know what they are. All right, Mick, turn on the fuzz tone. Let's satisfy these people. All right, well, there's one. Now, the next one was called a wah-wah pedal. Isaac, start your wah-wah pedal and let's shaft these people. Well, that was a big hit. These products became standard equipment for all of the musicians that were out there at the time. Now, in 1957, I remember hearing a song. I was in high school and I was mesmerized by this, and I couldn't get it out of my mind. It was called The Big Hurt by Tony Fisher. Listen to it, and I'll tell you the significance of it. I just had to have a product that would allow musicians to get that effect on stage. So we developed a product called the phase shifter. Now, most of you have probably heard this Genesis song, but I want you to focus on the phasing rhythm track and get your mind off what was happening on the elevated train in Risky Business. That product became an integral part of the package any musician would carry on the stage. Then we did a product that was an echo repeat. It was called the Maestro Echoplex. You remember the Lemon Piper's green tambourine?
Yeah.
That's the echo. It was an effect that made the record. In 1973, I recall being at Manny's Music. They were the premier record store in New York City, and for that matter, the country. Henry Goldrich, the owner, was a good buddy. I followed him around the store, taking orders for wah-wah pedals and fuzz tones and echoplexes, phase shifters, and he stopped me and said, "Bob, the industry needs an onstage theremin." Now, if you don't know what that is, you've heard it before in all the old horror movies, that eerie kind of sound. So we built a theremin. We made it. And here was a song that you will know. Listen for it. It's kind of in the background. And you will know what a theremin sounds like.
I'm picking up great vibrations. She's giving me excitations. I'm picking up good vibrations.
That's the theremin. Now, unfortunately, that was one of the few songs that used it. It was a poor seller. It got closed out. And 40 years later, I was looking at eBay and I saw these things selling for over $1,000. They were closing them out at $5. They had 2,000 pieces. Do the numbers. If I had bought all of these, I would have been in the Investor Hall of Fame. The best-selling classical record of all times was called Switched on Bach. And it was done with Moog synthesizers. That was part of my division as well. You may remember this kind of a song. I was now behind the scenes, but I was really happy with that. I wasn't a musician, but I was doing things for musicians. I built the division by 5 times. Another company called Roland hired me away. They were famous for their synthesizers and their keyboards. They were amazing in that they could take electronic keyboards and make them sound acoustic. And I was honored to show them to the likes of Elton John and the band. And these products caught on. There was one problem. A year later, they asked us to move to California, to Los Angeles. We had roots here. We refused to go. I was without a job. I was fired. At this point, I said, what am I going to do now? Music hasn't really worked. I'm going to start my own company. So I started a non-music company. It was the import business, goods from Asia. Did very well. I actually made money for the first time. And I sold the company 8 years ago. But no retirement for me. I went into commercial real estate. I play a lot of tennis. I hang out with 4 grandkids. Life is good. My music was left far behind. My stage career never fulfilled. And the only music that I really get nowadays is playing with my music-crazy grandson. We love to sit at the piano together. Then something happened, something special. About 5 years ago, my wife of 48 years, I've held on to that one. We went to the Cleveland area to visit family. As a fun diversion, we decided to go visit the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I had such conflicted feelings about this. I was envious, I was intimidated, I was admiring of all those superstars of the past. I was off in one section, looking at some of the things. My wife was over a couple of aisles on the other side, and I heard her scream to me, "Come here, you got to see this, you got to see this." Now, she's usually pretty cool and calm and collected, so I knew there was something going on there. She was standing in front of a special display, and I approached. Many of the products with which I was involved from 40 years prior were on display with this signage. On display here are early breakthrough sound modifying products that allowed musicians of the day to bring studio sounds to the stage. There were tears in my eyes. I was in the fucking Rock and Roll Hall of Fame!